Hello everyone and welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. This is your extra show for the week. My name is Cameron Bell. I am your host as always, and I've got a double delight for everyone on this week's extra, as I'm joined by really probably the leading light of our female contingent within our Heart and Hand community, and that's first of all Miss Marina Bannatyne. Marina, welcome. Thank you for coming along this week on Extra.
Thank you for having me on.
And partnering her, as always, is her very good friend and a good personal close friend of mine as well, Caroline Morrison. Caroline has managed to come on out of her sick bed, and listen, your sacrifice will not be in vain. Caroline, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome, Cammy. There's only a few offers that are just, you can't turn them down, and coming on Extra with yourself and Marina is one of them.
Marina, that's how you should have started the call, if I'm being perfectly honest. That's how you suck up to the host. Do you know what I mean?
Even on our sick bed, she's outshining me.
There you go. Listen, ladies, great to have you both on, and I really wanted to make sure you guys could come on for this show in particular. The reason being is because anyone who's listened regularly, a couple of weeks ago, I was on with Alan Bradley, and we were talking about the week just gone. We were kind of looking forward to it, and we were saying about the games, the opportunity really across a number of fronts in terms of how this team was going to be tested, and how obviously Philippe Clement was going to be tested, because I think it's fair to say that, you know, when we've had a challenge put to us, or we've had an opportunity or something that can be grasped, this team has let us down a few times. And so we were looking at the three games. Real Betis, obviously across in Spain, the League Cup final at Hampden against Aberdeen, and then obviously the game in hand against St Johnstone on Wednesday night past. And I think it's fair to say, ladies, and I don't know, I'm interested to see how you guys felt about it. You guys obviously were across in Spain, following the team over there as well, so you've obviously attended all of those games I've just mentioned. I said to Alan, I don't. Europe is lovely, right? And now that we're going to be able to have some form of European competition into the new year, great. Okay, fantastic. We know the financial benefits of that. We know the prestige it comes with it. If we have to drop into the conference, then okay, fair enough, then that's it. We really have to win the League Cup. And for me, that was critical, because the League Cup has always felt to me like it's Rangers Cup, and we wanted to be able to do that. And then obviously, as the weekend then unfolded, obviously we had no idea this would happen. Celtic end up dropping points to Hearts. So St Johnstone, in terms of that, you know, one of those games in hand that we had, was important. But I still think there's a lot of football left to play. The manager has said, we've had two sprints in the last week in the Europa League and obviously in the League Cup. But the league is a marathon. So, and I still believe this now, irrespective of all the stuff that we're about to talk about, that there's still a hell of a lot of football to be played in the league. Never in my life, ladies, did I think that we would actually be able to win all three of them. I prioritised the League Cup. I think almost every Rangers fan did, to be fair. But I did not think for a single minute that we would win all three of those games, and in some instances, fairly convincingly, with some really, really strong performances. Keen to kind of get your thoughts in terms of how you've seen the last week. Marina, I'll start with yourself, if that's okay. Obviously, heading across to Spain, were you feeling hopeful? Were you kind of like, I'm glad to be here and it's a nice trip, nice to get a wee bit of warmer weather at this time of year, but really it was all about Sunday?
Yeah, like, it's funny, well, not even just three significant victories, but three significant victories and Celtic dropping points. But it's funny, the sort of roller coaster that happens. Caroline and myself, we booked Betis when the fixtures were first announced. We thought we'll just book the holiday. And then it went to like the Beale fiasco. So it was like, and then Limassol. So things started to not look very good. And then Clement came along and things started to look better. And then at one point it was like, we're guaranteed the Europa League, and then Limassol again. So, I think eventually it was just, by this time last week, when we were getting ready to head over, we were basically thinking, okay, guaranteed European football, the Conference League. But no, I was not hopeful at all about winning that match. So really surpassed all expectations. Because obviously, it's been talked about before, but our reputation against Spanish teams, Betis's record at home, the odds were not in our favour. And even looking at the fact that at that point last week, we had a really depleted squad. We were down to what we thought was the bare bones, but there was obviously another layer of bones to come off as well. So no, I'm still in disbelief, and still, when you think about it, when you take everything into consideration, what an achievement it's been.
Caroline, we'll come on to, I don't know what you go past the bare bones. Is it the bearer bones? Bare bones? I don't know. But yeah, exactly. It's pretty much the marrow. You're absolutely right. And Caroline, I think obviously moving then into the League Cup, that again, I think for me was our opportunity not only to bring a cup home, which has been out of our trophy cabinet for far too long, but and I know, and I won't repeat a lot of the stuff that the boys covered in Flagship on Monday, because it's really important, I think, at this stage in the season. If you get a trophy in the cabinet, it gives everyone a boost. It gives everyone, and I think, as I was kind of discussing it with Alan when we were kind of forecasting this week and saying, like, the reason why that's the priority for me, it is about obviously winning that piece of silverware. I was less concerned about some of the players who have already got a League Winners' Medal and a Scottish Cup medal. It was more just because I want to try and instill into this group of players that you can win trophies, you can do it. And that hand and hoodoo, to exercise that demon and be able to get rid of that, it was so important to be able to try and win that trophy for so many reasons, Caroline. And not a great game, I think we've said that already, but the victory was all important. And I'll be honest with you, I remember I came out of Hampden, went down and met a couple of the chaps. I was shattered, like physically I was shattered, and it's just because you go through that emotional roller coaster. It must have been even worse for yourself, having obviously been away for during the week, and then almost as soon as you're back, you're straight into the League Cup.
Yeah, and like Marina touched on, and like most fans, I'd resigned myself to the fact going away over to Spain, and knowing how difficult a game that would be. I mean, I've very rarely seen an away game that we've won in Europe, only one time. So I just resigned myself to the confidence, and you know what, we'll have a good time. So the fact that we were able to put on quite a Herculean display, I think, to get the victory over there, it does then give you a boost, clearly, but it does make you a little bit nervous about having expended that much of an effort in the midweek. How difficult is it going to be to, with the bare bones squad that we've got, be able to produce something of a similar quality at the weekend? Actually, that the game wasn't high quality, but the discipline that it took from our players in order to get that victory over the line was still quite something. And you're completely right, Cammy. I agree. I think everyone's in pretty much agreement going into the start of that week. That's the important fixture, because the mentality boost that gives you, and conversely, if you don't lift that first possible silverware of the season, what that does to the morale going into the second half of the season, and what it also does for that team across the city as well. Us once again not capitalising on any failure that they've had to be completely dominant in picking up silverware. It just would completely, I think, set us back a number of paces, despite what Clermont's managed to do in such a short space of time. So yeah, for us to have completed both of those tasks, maintained pressure on the league, and seen Celtic, with 2 back-to-back defeats, you really can't have wished for anything more perfect just before Christmas. It's proper Christmas miracle territory.
Fairy tale stuff. And we head into last night's game against St Johnstone. A St Johnstone team which, let's face it, has struggled. They've obviously brought in Craig Levein. I think most people know within Scottish football, Craig Levein's style of play. He's a pragmatist. I think he wants to be able to set up quite a stoic team that won't concede stupid goals. There's a thing that I suppose it's very early on, right? And I say this with a pinch of salt, but I think of the 2 games that we've just been talking about there, and a degree of the feel-good factor, and again, we'll talk about injuries and the walking wounded in just a moment. But being able to try and go into that game where I think you're just getting in a bit of a high. You've now got a League Cup. You've got players in there who, in some instances, are now have silverware for the first time. I think it's fine to say that St Johnstone could come in to set into stifle. As Craig Levine's incredibly experienced, especially within the realm of Scottish football. However, this again was a test, and the reason as to why I say that is because it was one of those games in hand. Would I have been convinced if Celtic had dropped points on the Saturday when we were playing St Johnstone on a Sunday, then had to make up the deficit? Rangers are still to prove that to me, but they've went some of that way by being able to try and do that last night. A fairly comfortable win, but without being too disparaging to the result and the performance, it isn't one it's not gonna bother the greatest games that Rangers have ever played.
No, I think at this stage really, it's just the 3 points that matter after everything we'd achieved this week. And I also take into consideration, I've just remembered there that the game before all this happens, we played the match with with only 10 players. So yeah, if I think how exhausted I am, I can't imagine what it must be like for the players, although they are considerably fitter than me. So yeah, it was just, just win. I think there were some positive sides to the game. A lot of shots on target. I was quite impressed with Dibble. Obviously a wee bit rusty at the start, but no, I'm just delighted with the 3 points, even if it had been 1-0. So yeah, you can't really ask for much more than that. I think in the league it doesn't really matter if we win pretty or in any of the games. Actually, it doesn't matter how we win as long as we win, and they're starting, touchwood, to show that we can do it, and we can do it in crucial matches.
And listen, Marina, I'll stick with you on that because I think that's totally fair. It's fine to be able to then say, well, you can go out and play entertaining football and blah blah. I totally agree with you. I don't necessarily need to see entertaining football as long as you're winning matches and as long as you can put in the performances. And again, we're hamstrung at the moment in terms of some of the injuries that we have. So I know that it's very much a movable feast, shall we say, in terms of the starting lineup and who can be involved in this moment. But I actually thought St Johnstone keeper Mitov, I thought he had an excellent game last night because there was a number of chances that we had on another day that end up getting in. And I think, Marina, what I've really enjoyed was we could have defaulted to something that we've done a lot in the past, which is if you're playing up against a team, albeit we were winning, right, more so in the second half, and fair enough, okay, we're winning at this stage, but when you're trying to break down a team, we've almost always defaulted to this idea of let's play it out to the wings, let's be able to try and do that. And I think what I noticed, and again, I've watched the game back a couple of times to be able to try and see how we're creating some of those chances that I mentioned there. We're trying to do our best to be able to try and play through the middle and actually play through the team. And when they're pretty much occupied within, their own third, probably within 25 yards out from goal, and you've got, all 11 opponents in there, that's a hard thing to do. But yet we created quite a few chances. And I think that that's something which we also have to take away from the game as well.
Yes, exactly. I'm a bit apprehensive about cursing this and saying or jinxing this, but that was the exact difference. We had a lot of shots. I think previously we just, exactly as you said, we've been taken out to the wing. We hadn't been taking any shots. We had a lot of shots last night. Not all of them were on target. Some seemed a bit wasteful. I'm absolutely gutted for Sam Lammers that he shot that one was saved. It was an excellent save, and maybe Lammers' story could have been a different one, or could be a different one if that had been in. But yeah, we were at least taking shots, and I think that shows, hopefully, that we are starting something that we've struggled with for years. We are starting to be able to break these teams down, and maybe with a more clinical striker, we'll be able to do it a bit better. So it's improvement, isn't it? Really.
That improvement is the perfect word, 100%. And I think Caroline Marina hits a great point there as well around Sam Lammers. So I'll be honest with you, I don't want this to turn into criticism or any kind of negativity on this, because actually, like I say, there's a really good feel-good factor around the club, the fan base. We'll come on to the first goal scorer in just a second, but I think it's interesting to me when you see the inclusion of, Dowell, when you see Lammers starting. There's a point to this where we've got a lot of football to play. Obviously, everybody's going to have one eye on the Old Firm game next week, but we need to be able to use our resources, right? And that's why. And listen, Marina's hitting the nail on the head. I felt gutted for Sam Lammers when that shot didn't go in, because I was just thinking that it's similar to Dundee. Scored an absolute screamer up there. Can it help his confidence? Can it get him into a better space? And now Cyril Dessers is scoring goals, which I think a lot of people didn't believe in. Obviously, he came on last night for Kamar Roof, going off after, I think it was just after quarter an hour after Roof had to go off. I feel so bad for him, I really do. But this is the reason as to why I think we need to look past Kamar Roof now, is because everybody knew his run in the team was going to be ended with some sort of injury. Like, he wasn't going to get a form, he was going to get injured first.
Yeah, and I do feel terrible for him. Actually, the game last night, I gave my ticket to my sister. She took my brother along. I watched it on the telly, and I felt for him. He cut a really frustrated figure going off the pitch, and it's hard to tell exactly what the crux of it is. Like, is it completely an inability to pay? Is there an element of fear there with Kamar Roof? Is he really pushing himself to the point that maybe some other players do? There's so many question marks over it, but you ultimately come back to the same thing, which is he's not able to play a part in the team for more than a small feature or two, a bit part of a game here and there, and then we don't see him for months. And ultimately, that's just not something that can continue. And it's a shame, because we've had a lot of fantastic moments with Kamar Roof, a recent one, but ultimately we need to start building the foundations of a team that are going to be regularly available. It's almost every season now that we're having the same discussion about our team being down to the bare bones, and Clement's talked about getting to the root of why we have so many injuries. But I think part of that is also not taking some of the chances that we have in the past, where we know someone may have an injury prone career. We think, let's take a bit of a gamble here. I think we've come to the point where we're no longer going to be able to tolerate that. I think that the fan base generally are just sick of this situation occurring where multiple players are unavailable, and it leaves us at times, not able to compete on all fronts, which we hope Rangers will do.
Yeah, and Marina, again, part of the situation we have at the moment just now with players being unavailable led to Kieran Dowell featuring last night. Interesting in terms of, I don't know how much the manager wanted him to be involved in terms of, it just doesn't feel like he's been given an opportunity. He has now had to get an opportunity, because I think due to injury, due to the fact that, he is fit and can produce something. From when we saw Dowell at the beginning of the season and, the pre-season stuff, I actually thought he had some nice touches. I thought he had, something about him. I don't know what the reason is for Cologne moving him out the picture slightly. But what I will say is last night, I felt he had a pretty decent performance. I thought he was solid. I think, as I always try to do, is to bring in the human element of it, where you've got a guy who has been pretty much put to one side. He then gets this opportunity flung back at him because of, the way how the circumstances have fallen. And I thought he played pretty well. I thought he came into it. I didn't think he looked like he was lacking confidence. I didn't think he struggled at any real point. How much he'll still be involved once we start bringing players back to fitness, etc., I don't know. But whilst he's been given the opportunity, I think he's doing what he can just now to make the absolute most of it.
Definitely. I was asking the people around about me last night, why he'd been out, because I know obviously he'd been injured. He came back and then just sort of fell away. So I wasn't, and I know there have been rumours like attitudes or whatever, but last night his attitude was perfect. And we just mentioned there that we're starting to improve and breaking teams down, or we showed that last night, and he was an integral part of that. His passing, considering it's not his natural position as well. I think he was excellent, and I think he did excellent, especially when Lundstrom went off.
Yeah, totally agree with that, and I think it just gave him a little bit more license to be able to try and express himself in there as well. Caroline, let's come back to Cyril Dessers, right? The much maligned Cyril Dessers. I think it's very interesting. You look at obviously 3 goals in the last 4 games for him. He came on, as we said, because Roof ended up having to go off. Interesting in terms of some of his movement, because he was involved in both goals. Obviously scores the opener and was brought down for the penalty for the second goal. Is it due to, how do you feel that this is Clement working with them, been able to give him a bit of coaching and some guidance and been able to try and get something out of him? Because he is playing a lot better. You know what I mean? There was a running joke of he's just constantly offside. I don't see that much of that from him any longer. So it looks to me like his runs are now slightly more intelligent. He is contributing at what I feel is the right time. When we won the league, for 55, I've always said certain players hit form at certain times. And when you consider, again, like I say, where we are now with a striker crisis, he's getting game time, but he's also scoring goals as well, and some very important goals, I might add. And I thought he was incredibly unlucky not to score in the League Cup final. Last night, a lovely finish, probably a difficult angle, but again, like I say, from a goalkeeper who played very, very well last night, it has to be said. But a nice finish just to slot it by the keeper, and then again for the penalty, as soon as he goes through and he makes the run, and he's committing the goalkeeper to be able to try and come out. Didn't do that thing which I've criticised him of before, where the minute there's contact, he goes down too theatrically, looks to the referee for an appeal for a decision, doesn't get it. Last night he was fouled. He went down. There was no rolling about. There was no screaming exclamations. There was none of that. It was he went down and it was a penalty. There's no doubt it was a penalty. But again, he is contributing towards this, and I'm keen to get your thoughts on whether or not maybe it's just his time in the team, whether or not he's just had a purple patch. Is it Clement? Is it a mixture of all of them?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's probably a mixture of a number of those factors. I don't think that Clement's influence can be denied. I think there's a lot of coaching going on in the background. And I think that we see it with Clement. He tries to, or he appears to try to kind of get to the players on an individual level. He's always having those individual conversations throughout a game, at the end of the game, even when players are coming off. And I think that motivation and understanding what makes a player tick is a big part of what Clement does really well. Also, I think a bit of time and space. It didn't start well for him. And I think actually Beale persevered a wee bit too much with Dessers and created a bubble of pressure that just became too much. There was a while there where Dessers were getting played weekly with Danilo on the bench, and fans were getting so frustrated because they said, why are we persevering with someone that it's not coming off for when we've got Danilo as an alternative? So a number of different things, and Clement talks about this too, the relationship between the fans and Dessers at certain points was not good too. I think just a number of different things. Him being as well given a bit of time and space to work on things has definitely helped. And his confidence is growing with every game. Even initially, before he'd started kind of contributing to numbers and with goals, he was still having positive performances. And we'd kind of come away from a game or two saying, do you know what, Dessers didn't get a goal, but I thought that was a more positive contribution from him overall. And then he starts to pop up maybe with an assist or a goal, and it's just that steady growth of his kind of career, which is kind of nice to see. I hope that we might get to see Lammers begin to kind of show signs of flourishing, but we haven't probably quite seen that quite so readily yet. But good for Dessers. He's had to really probably put his pride aside a couple of moments, but he's taking his chances now. And for his last 2 goals to be kind of through the legs of the keepers as well, he's just showing a little bit of flair, which I quite like. So yeah, hopefully the taste of getting a bit of silverware is another component which is going to add to his game and his desire, his hunger between now and the end of the season. Because as a number 9, and as our number 9, he must want, and his goal must be to finish as our top scorer come the end of the season. So that's got to be something I hope he's working towards. Make sure that Tav and Seema's names aren't on the top of that list. Make sure that he is.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, listen, he's our player at the moment. I know there was plenty of people saying, can we get rid of him in, the winter, the January window? I understand why people would think that, but it's not easy to put, players who are not playing well in the shop window to be able to try and get rid of him, because, again, who wants to be able to try and take him? Fair enough, a change of scenery may have helped, but overall, any club interested in being able to try and take him probably wouldn't be doing much more than taking him out on loan, in which case we then obviously bring him back to us at the end of the season, and then we're potentially back to square one with him again. So listen, absolutely all power to him. He needs to be able to try and continue contributing, as you say, whether or not it's scoring goals or setting them up. I'd like to see a bit more, Caroline, from him from a hold-up play perspective. I think that's something which, hopefully, the manager sees as something that he potentially could have some development to work on, and how we can utilise a little bit more of that out of his game as well.
Yeah, I'd agree. I don't think we've seen an awful lot of kind of game intelligence from him and linking up with some of our players that are able to kind of really complement someone who will make an interesting run, who will even just create space for themselves. I don't see enough of that, but you're right when you mentioned earlier that we're seeing far less of the offsides. It's still occasionally creeping in, but I think that's something he's been working on. We see it far less. So yeah, let's hope that is part of something overall he's being coached on regularly, and we might start to see a bit more of that intelligence and presence grow over the next kind of couple of months as well, because we've got finally again a title challenge on our hands, let's hope. So we're going to need all the contribution we can get from Dessers.
Marina, obviously going to goal up always helps, but we were also given a further advantage when St Johnstone had a man sent off for what I thought was a horrendous tackle on John Lundstrom. I understand that, whether or not there's malice, intent, however you want to call it, but it was a shocking challenge. And Alan Moore covering himself in glory by then only giving a booking, and then VAR obviously called it over, upgraded it to a red. I thought it was a red the minute I saw it. And apart from our own injury concerns that, we create ourselves, now we're playing against players. And I think Lundstrom last night was actually lucky not to go off, with a potential fracture or a break. The fact that he was able to play on, albeit he came off obviously at the break, but the fact that he was able to play on with that absolutely stunned me. Manager confirmed after the game, it looks like we may not be able to see him again before the winter break, which obviously puts him out for a number of key games. And again, drowning in irony, a player who has come back into some form, played well over the last number of months, has really been able to step into some of that since working with Philippe Clement, and he gets a tackle like that rules him out for at least, it'll probably be now at least a number of weeks. A really weak initial decision by the referee. Thankfully, VAR was able to correct it. However, now we've got yet another injury, and especially in a midfield that's already massively depleted. It's just so frustrating.
I know. We finally got our Thursday night John Lundstrom back, and then this happens. It's you couldn't make it up. And the midfielders, as we were saying, we thought we were down to the bare bones, and he's just been so important. It's devastating. It really is. I have so much respect for Clement in his post-match interview. Like his refusal to speak about it, like the anger and like his composure. It's just, I know it's unbelievable. I really don't know that. Thank goodness we've got Dowell. But it's just how many injuries. Fair enough, a lot of the injuries at the start of the season may have been caused by lack of fitness, but when there's and I wonder if Clement was so angry as well, thinking about the Aberdeen game and Shinnie, the number of challenges that went unpunished, and it's just really what we have to contend with. And when we're looking at playing in Europe, thankfully we have a wee break before we need to resume that again. But just all the competitions that we're in, all the injuries that we're dealing with, and then players making challenges like that. It's hopefully it's nothing too serious. Like, I guess the main concern is John Lundstrom, of course, in his career, not just our season. Hopefully it's not too serious. I'm amazed that he managed to carry on, like you said, for as long as he did. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it's not that serious, but I was worried, if I'm being honest, that the fact that the manager obviously made reference to it immediately after the game in his press conference in terms of how long he expects him to be out for. However, just as you were saying that, because you made a great point there about obviously what the manager said, so the direct quote he came out with was to say, at first sight, it doesn't look good, so I hope I can recover him before the winter break. It's another player who is kicked off the pitch, so I'm really frustrated with that. It's his ankle, so we'll need to see in the next couple of days what will happen. It clearly wasn't a good challenge with your studs forward like that. We had an even worse one later in the game when the guy luckily hit the ball and not my player. That's the Dowell challenge you were talking about, Marina. The intensity there was to break a leg. These things are not good for football. Now, listen, you're never going to come on and hear this podcast ever say we want more protection, we want blah blah, because it's not there. What I am worried about is whilst these challenges go into it, and again, Marina, you're absolutely 100% correct. Cantwell nearly get his head taken off by Shinnie. And I think, we've said in various pods, both on here and on our Patreon site, that, I think Shinnie got about 7 or 8 challenges before eventually, he was told don't do it again. And we were lucky that we haven't had other injuries based on that. But whilst you have such a low standard of refereeing, Caroline, I'm not saying that I don't want players to be protected. I understand the fact that it's it's elite sport. I understand that there is passion and there is intensity to it. What we do need to see, however, is that, again, if it's repeated fouling, if it's clearly a red card, you deliver the red card. Fair enough, VAR's there to correct it if you need to review it, if they've got someone else to do that. But the fact that you could see that challenge last night and only think it was an initial yellow just staggers me. I just don't understand it whatsoever. And fundamentally, this is going to impact all teams now. And we are in the brunt of it. We're not complaining about it per se, but I have to completely agree with what the manager said yesterday. This is not good for football.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you and Marina said. And Clement, I think, again, like Marina said, he did say it in a really controlled way, but I think he made the point really clearly. And for that foul on Lundstrom not to receive a straight red, I don't know what the referee was doing. And it's all very well saying they know that they have VAR as that safety net. So err on the side of caution and, go with the yellow. It'll be overturned if it needs to. But it was plainly obvious that was over the top. It was dangerous. It was reckless. All of the things, all the boxes needing ticked for a red card. And it just shows complete disregard for a fellow professional. So that, along with on Sunday and prior to that playing Aberdeen, the repeated fouls. There are some players that appear to be Teflon. Like Shinnie appears to have as many fouls as he wants before he just gets a talking to. And, you're lucky if you see him get a yellow card. Whereas other players, I don't know, quite quickly appear to get a reputation and will pick up a yellow at the drop of a hat. Even Cantwell, I think, towards the end of last season, it appeared to be that referees couldn't wait to book him for what weren't dangerous or reckless challenges. It was just tough challenges, because there was this perception building that he was someone that was going to pick up a yellow and maybe a bit of a hothead. So the overall consistency in refereeing, I think, in Scotland is quite poor. And it kind of goes back to what people have spoken about for a long time. The infrastructure, making sure you've got full-time professionals, you've got the training in place, the support in place. A little bit more transparency maybe with fans would help, I think, at times. But whatever needs done should be done. These are professional footballers, and this is what should be aiming to be a real good quality league. And it can only actually become that if the right infrastructure is in place and we've got the right referees supporting our game. So it is frustrating at the moment, especially for us, where we've got almost no recognised midfielders left, or the prospect of no recognised midfielders left for again a busy spell up until the break. And you just wonder if referees were a bit tougher and a bit quicker to take control of the game, if we would be in this position.
And Caroline, I mean, I think, as much as I love Rangers, I thought they did something very irresponsible, if I'm being perfectly honest, when they brought Santa out at half time, because I was really worried that, obviously going on to the park, playing the League Cup, I thought he could get injured and Christmas could have been ruined for children around the world.
I know. I mean, banter, is it worth potentially ruining Christmas for millions of kids? I don't know, but if Rangers hadn't if they hadn't brought out Santa, I think there would have been an uproar, because that's an opportunity that can't be missed. And the lack of subtlety in the club, in the way they tweeted it and said it's an excellent reception for Santa at Ibrox, I just love it. That's what it's all about, to be perfectly honest. And we've had plenty of moments over recent history where they've had the opportunity to lord it over us. So we have to enjoy moments like this when they present themselves.
Yeah, exactly. I think, as the kids say, I was today years old when I found out that Santa was a Celtic board member, the way how they treated him. But there you go. Listen, back to the more important things, and that's obviously our trip to Fir Park on Christmas Eve. One of the things that we all love, Marina, Sunday 12 o'clock kickoff. So we'll probably be a goal down in the first half an hour of the game because Rangers are terrible. Starting at 12, we normally, get into about half past. So I'm hoping that we haven't conceded by this stage, but it wouldn't surprise me. But looking forward to be able to try and sign off into Christmas and into the holidays with another win. I'm going to be honest with you. I think, as much as we've touched on in terms of the injuries, etc., I'm just really cautious. I'm really conscious that, we've played, as we've just discussed, some really high-profile games in the last 7 days. We've got this game coming up against a Motherwell team that's mega struggling, second bottom of the table, a very physical team. And I know it sounds very archaic, and I don't want it to be the case that it's a damning indictment of Scottish football. But right now, if I was a Motherwell player, I'd be going out there saying, can we get at these guys from a physical perspective? So it's going to be tough, and we're going to have to go out there and play with some of that confidence and that momentum that we've earned in the last week, and we've got to go and just stand up to that challenge toe to toe.
I know, this is the ultimate test, isn't it? We've beaten a Spanish team in Spanish soil. We've won a trophy. Can we win a 12 o'clock kickoff? The real challenge. Just win again. It doesn't matter how. And it is, and we keep joking about this, is Clement Harry Potter? He's doing miracles, but really, he really has been tested with the squad or with the options that he's left with. It's a difficult game for us, but yeah, I don't know. I've got genuine belief in this team. But yeah, this is the ultimate test. We've had such a great December so far. Is Christmas going to be ruined in 90 minutes?
I hope not, because I'm hoping if I could get a present from Santa, Marina, I would like a Kieran Dowell masterclass at Fir Park. That would do me quite nicely.
Sounds good.
Yeah, absolutely. Folks, that will do us for extra for this week. Obviously, David won't be back on Monday with Flagship because it's Christmas Day, and even David doesn't work Christmas Day. However, I will be back with Mr. Edgar for a special extra show as we start to build up towards the Old Firm game on the 30th as well. Just before we finish up, I just want to thank our executive producers in London, Mike Lee and Paul Myers, our show sponsor, Zenith Coins. Please head over to zenithcoins.com. There could be a wee Christmas present in there for someone as well in case you're doing anything last minute. The most important thing, however, for me to do it is to thank my two excellent guests this week. And again, like I say, Caroline, thank you so much for managing your way through it. You're an absolute wee trooper. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, you're welcome, Cammy. That was nice, actually. And yeah, totally worth being ill for when you're over in Betis and you're in Hampden and you get results like we did in the last week. I've got no complaints here.
Yeah, absolutely. And ensuring a Kieran Doyle masterclass at Fir Park on Sunday. You heard it here, folks. Our very own Marina Bannatyne. Marina, thank you so much for coming on.
No, thank you. The pleasure's all mine. You're so handsome and funny and kind. And how's my sign off? Is that
your sign off? Much better. There you go. It started poorly, finished perfectly. Well done, Marina. Very well done. Very well done. The last thing for me to do as well, folks, if you are missing any of your Rangers fixes, and let's be honest, there's plenty going on at the club at the moment, and there's also loads of football over the course of the next couple of weeks, please head on over to our Patreon site, which is patreon.com/heart and hand, and jump in and join a massive community of Bears who are all enjoying what's happening right now under Philippe Clement's quadruple chasing Rangers team. Have a brilliant Christmas, everyone. I hope you have some wonderful time with friends and family. A well-earned rest, hopefully, as well. And we'll be back with you next week. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.